Masechet Baba Batra, Daf Ayin Zayin. Yesterday we learned a baraita that has a machloket about how to transfer a document, like a loan document. I have an IOU that someone owes me money, and I want to transfer it to you. But obviously I don't want to only transfer the parchment and the ink, I want to actually transfer the debt so that you can then go collect it. And so in order to do that, according to Rabbi, that's Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, he says it's enough to do mesira, that I hand over the document, I say, here it is, now it's yours. That's all I have to do. According to Chachamim, we have to do mesira, and also we have to write another document, a document of sale or gift, that says, I am giving over, selling this document to the other person. You need both the mesira and also a shtar. Amad Amemad, Hilcheta Otiot Niknot B'Mesira Kerebi. Amemad, Amora says, the halacha follows the opinion that says that otiot, letters, documents, can be acquired with just mesira, just passing it, as according to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Amar le Rav Asher Amemar, Gemara or Sevara? Rav Asher asked Amemar, do you know this from a tradition, or is it based on reason? Generally, halacha does follow Rabbi when he's against one of his colleagues, but not against the majority, and here he's against the majority, so Rav Asher is asking, right, how do you know this? Is it based on just some reasoning that you thought of, or do you have a tradition about it? Amar le Gemara says, I have a tradition that halacha follows Rabbi. Amar Rav Asher, Sevara namehu, totiot mile ninhu, umile b'mile la mikanyan. Rav Asher says, I can bolster your tradition with something, with reason. Because it makes sense that a document is just letters, and letters cannot be acquired through other letters, or other words cannot be acquired through other words. It wouldn't make sense. I'm trying to transfer you a document. So how am I going to transfer? By writing another document? Well, what about that document? Will that need also a document? It makes sense that you need something different. So you need an action. Fine, I gave it to you, mesira. But it doesn't make sense that words would require other words in order to be transferred. So Rav Asher says, I agree with you, and you have a tradition, that's great. I think it also makes sense logically. Now we challenge Rav Asher's logic from a source. V'la v'ha'amar Rabba bar Yitzchak amar Rav, shene shetarot hem, zechu besadeh lifloni v'chitbu lo et hashtar, chozer bashtar ve'no chozer basadeh. So is it not true that you can acquire words with other words? We're going to see an opinion that you can. It's coming up soon. It's not this one yet. So we're building up to it. So Rav says that there are two laws regarding documents. If someone says to two people, I'd like you to take possession of this field on behalf of that other person. I really want to give it a gift to some other guy who's not here. But he's not here, so I want to give it to you, and you'll accept it on his behalf. Zachin le'adam shelo befanav. You can do something good for someone even without them present. And we assume that they would want to get this gift, get this field. So he says, do me a favor, acquire it on his behalf. They'll do some kind of kinyan, a chalipin or something, as a barter. And also, he tells these two people, chitbu lo et hashtad, and I want you to write a document that will be the proof for sale. The document, the shtad itself, is not the means of the sale. They're going to do a kinyan chalipin with a handkerchief. And he says, I authorize you guys also to go and write a document that will prove that I am giving this field to him. Now, chozer bashtar ve'eno chozer basadeh. Once he does that, he can renege on his instructions to write the document, but he cannot renege regarding the field, because the field they already did. He already got the handkerchief, so now he gave over the field. That's it. The transaction is already done. The transfer of ownership already happened. If he says, you know what, wait, but don't write the document, he can do that, because these are two separate things, and the field is already transferred without the document, because you can transfer a field just with chalipin. The document is there only for proof, and he says, you know what, I don't want proof. I don't want it to be publicized that I don't have this land anymore. People will think I'm not as rich, whatever reason. So that's law number one. That's not related to our question. If, however, I give instructions and I say, please acquire this field on behalf of that other person on condition that you also write a document about it, proving that I am giving it to him. If he says it al menat, not as two separate instructions, acquire and write, but acquire on condition that you write, then he can change his mind. Choser ben bashtad ben basedeh. I can change my mind regarding everything. Even if we did the kinyan, I took the handkerchief, but you didn't write it yet, it's on condition. So I say, you know what? Don't write it. And if I say don't write it, not only do they not write it, also the field is not transferred because it's dependent on the writing of the document. That's the second law. Also not relevant to us. The one relevant is the next one. V'Rav Chia bar Avin amar Rav Huna shelosha shetaroten. So Rav Chia bar Avin says the name of Rav Huna. Actually, there are 3 laws regarding documents. Today, had amaran, the 2 that we just mentioned. Idach, and here's another one. Im kadam mocher v'katav et hashtar. Let's say I'm a seller and I really need to sell this property. I'm looking around. I'm afraid there's not going to be a scribe ready available at the time that I find a buyer, and I want to lock him in and complete it. So here's what I do: I go to a scribe first before I even have a buyer, and I tell him, "Listen, scribes, can you just write out a sale document that shows that I'm selling it?" And I carry it around. Now, whoever is in possession of this document will have proof, because the document says, "Oh, this person sold the field to me." So I wrote it. The seller wrote the document first, and then I went and found a buyer. That's permitted. כאותה ששנינו. כותבין שטר למוכר אף על פי שאין לוקח עמו. כיוון שהחזיק זה בקרקע, נקנה שטר בכל מקום שהוא. וזוהי ששנינו, נכסים שאין להם אחריות, נקנים עם נכסים שיש להם אחריות בכסף ושטר וחזקה. And we know that you can do this from a Mishnah later on in this Masechet, that if you write a document, a scribe can write a document to a seller, even though the buyer is not with him, and he'll hold on to it. Now, once he finds a buyer and they do a kinyan, maybe the buyer goes and locks the gate, or however he acquires it, the buyer automatically gets possession of the document, no matter where it is. He doesn't have to take the document, he automatically gets it. And this fits in with another Mishnah in Masechet Kiddushin that says property that cannot serve as a guarantee, meaning movable items, can be acquired together with, alongside, property that can be used as a guarantee. And to do that, you can use money or a document or chazakah. So in other words, if you're acquiring land and you do acquire the land by giving money, or with a document, or with the buyer doing a chazakah, taking possession of it, like closing the gate, then he also can acquire another item, a movable item. In this case, we're talking about the document that he gets as proof. So what do we see here? That the buyer, he does one action and gets the land through a chazakah by closing the gate. And just by thinking about it, you have a shtad also? I need a shtad. I need a deed to prove that it's mine. Oh, you have it. Oh, where is it? I left it in the other place. Okay, just by thinking about wanting to get it, he gets it. So it's the question is actually from a Kal Vachomer. If just by thinking about wanting to get this document, one can acquire it, then all the more so, if I actually write a document about a document, then certainly I should be able to, that should work. And so all this is a challenge to Rav Asher's proof. Rav Asher said, it makes sense what Rabbi said, that the halacha is like Rabbi, your tradition, it makes sense. Because where do we ever find that words can be acquired with words? No, words can be acquired with an action. You want to transfer a document, take the document and hand it over. And that should be sufficient. You have to write another document. Where would you see that words can be acquired with other words. Well, we just saw a place. It's actually with even less than words. You're not even writing words. You're just saying, oh, I wrote a document. I left it in the house over there. But you know what? I want you to have it. And you think about, okay, I'm going to take it. It's a good idea. So you're just saying words or just thinking about it, and then you get it. So that's even less than writing a document. So certainly, writing a document should be able to help to acquire another document. That's the challenge. And the answer is pretty simple. Agav shane deha matbea de la nikne b'chalipin ve'agav bara nikne. No, you missed the point of this whole this Mishnah. Is it's a kinyan agav, a kinyan by means of something else. That is a form of acquisition. If I sell you a piece of land, I can say together with this land, you also get the furniture. You also get the car. You also get some item that's not even on the land. Even coins. Coins generally cannot be acquired through a chalipin, through exchange. If I say, I want you to acquire these coins, okay, give me this handkerchief and then that money is yours. Okay, no, chalipin doesn't work in that way. However, if I sell you land and I say, oh, you know what? The coins also, they should go through with the land. And even though the land you're acquiring through a handkerchief, once you have the land, then the coins also can be acquired agav the land. And that's what's going on here. This shtad that I wrote beforehand, before I wasn't even with the buyer, and then I find the buyer and I say, listen, I have a document down back home. I will transfer it to you when you take the land. You know what? I'm going to transfer that movable item, the shtad, together with the land. So it's actually not being transferred through words or through thoughts. It's being transferred through a totally valid form of transfer, which is kinyan agav, a movable item, agav land. And so that solves the question that we had against Rav Asher. Ki had Rav Papa havu leterasad al pezuze bechozai akninu nihale Rav Shemuel bar Acha agav asipa debete ki ata nefak leape ad tavach. And we have a little story about someone who did precisely this. Rav Papa, he had 12,000 dinar that was being held for him in Bechozai. It's a far place, and he was not prepared to go all the way there. And so his friend, Rav Shemuel bar Acha, was going there. So he says, Rav Shemuel bar Acha, I want you to go get it on my behalf. But in order to do that, he's going to have to go and testify and swear. He can only do that if it's his. So Rav Papa, here's what he did. He made a transfer of the money it's his money. Rav Papa has money that these people in Bechozai, the Shomrim, are holding for him. So he wants to transfer those coins to Rav Shemuel bar Acha, so that in the meantime it will belong to Rav Shemuel bar Acha. Rav Shemuel bar Acha, once he acquires it, then he can gift it back to Rav Papa if he wants to. We assume that he will. So what did he do? He transferred it to him with kinyan agav, by the means of the threshold of his house. Meaning he couldn't just do it with, give me a handkerchief, that would have been easy, right? And I'll transfer you the coin. Can't do that because you can't transfer coins with a handkerchief. But what he did is he says, I'll sell you the threshold of my house, of the doorway, and through that I'm also giving to you that money. And sure enough, Rav Shemuel bar Acha went on that trip. He got the money, and when he came back, Rav Papa was so happy. He went out to greet him all the way to Tavach, pretty far, to happy, oh wow, you got my money, thank you so much. Lastly, aval lo machad lo et ha'abadim velo et ha'marsofin velo et ha'antike. Back in the Mishnah it says, if I sell you a ship without saying anything, so then it comes along with certain items. But it does not come along with slaves, packing bags, or antiki. Unless I say everything I'm selling you everything with the ship, then those things do come along. My antike, what does that mean? Amar Papa, iska dib gava. Papa explains it's merchandise on the ship. If I say I'm just selling you the ship, you don't get the merchandise. But if I say I'm selling you the ship and everything on it, then the merchandise is included. Next Mishnah, machar et hakaron lo machar et haperadot. Machar et haperadot lo machar et hakaron. If I sell you a wagon, that's all I say. I say I'm selling you a wagon. It does not come along with the mules that are pulling the wagon. Here's a wagon and horses in this case, so it does not include them. And the same other way around. If I sell you the mules, that's it. You only get the mules. You do not get the wagon. Machar et hasemed lo machar et habakar. Machar et habakar lo machar et hasemed. If I sell you a yoke, this would be a yoke that joins together two animals. Here we have a picture, right? This wood part is the yoke. I say I'm selling you the yoke. So you don't get the animals. That's a separate thing. And if I say I'm selling you two animals, then you only get the animals and you do not get the yoke. These are separate things. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Hadamim Modi'in. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees. And he says, wait, we look at the amount of money. Kesad, Amar lo mechor li simdecha b'matayim zuz. Hadavar yadua she'en hasemed b'matayim zuz. For example, if someone says, sell me your yoke for 200 zuz. Now everybody knows a yoke, how much is a yoke? I don't know, 50 zuz. So since everybody knows that, well, why would you say sell it to me for 200? Obviously, it means the yoke itself plus the animals that go in the yoke. So you can tell from the amount of money. If on the other hand, someone says, sell me the yoke for 50 zuz or whatever, 55, 56, 47. Those are all around this proper price for a yoke. Then he means only the yoke. So you can tell from the purchase price what the person means. Hachamim omrim en hadamim re'ayah. Hachamim say no, the purchase price is not a proof. Maybe he wants to pay. He's okay to pay extra, to pay a lot more than the going rate. And the Gemara will discuss why Chachamim say that. Taneh Rav Tachlifa bar Ma'arva kamed Rabbi Abhu. Rav Tachlifa from the west, he recited the following baraita in front of Rabbi Abhu. Rabbi Abhu must have been a teacher of his, and he knew a baraita and recited the baraita in front of his teacher. Machar et hakaron, machar et haperadot. This baraita is the opposite of our Mishnah. It says, if I sell you a wagon, then I sell the mules also. The mules come along with the wagon. Hold on. Anan lo machar tenan. And our Mishnah says the opposite. If I sell you a wagon, it does not come with the mules. Amar le ismeyeh. So that was Rabbi Abu's question. What about our Mishnah? So Rav Tachlifa says, oh, should I erase this baraita from my memory? I have it memorized in a list, a collection of official baraitot. So is this deauthorized and I should not recite it anymore? Amar le la titargem matnitech be'adukin bo. And so Rabbi Abu says, no, if you have a tradition, it's a good tradition. So let's explain that it's talking about specifically a case where the mules are attached to the wagon. Since right now they're currently attached, and I say, I'm selling you the wagon, in that case, so with the wagon with the mules and they're attached to it, in that case the mules do come along with the wagon. But if they're not currently attached, even though these are the mules that generally pull this wagon, then that's what the case of the Mishnah, and that's where if I sell you the wagon, the mules do not come along with it. Machar et hasemed lo machar et habakar. Hechi dame. Ilema dekaru lesimda simda lebakar bakar. Peshita. Simda bazabenle, bakar lazabenle. Now we're going to ask about the next clause, that if I sell a yoke, then I do not sell the ox. If I sell the ox, I do not sell the yoke. So what's the case? If everyone calls a yoke, and everybody calls the cattle, well, in that case, isn't that obvious that he sold the yoke and he does not sell the cattle? The Mishnah wouldn't have to teach me such an obvious case. Vela de kadule nami lebakar simda. So maybe we're talking about a place where people call oxen a simda. When they want to say, and they see a couple of oxen around, they say that yoke, and they mean not just a physical yoke, the wood itself, they mean that a pair of oxen that's over there that would go together in the yoke. Well, in that case, if everybody calls oxen yoke, meaning the word simda has two meanings. It could mean just the wood, or it could mean the oxen also. Well, then the law should be that he sells everything, because simda has a meaning of oxen as well. So then oxen should get sold too. La siricha batra dekaru lesimda simda bakar bakar v'ikaname dekaru lebakar simda. Rather, it must be that the Mishnah is assuming a case where it's a place that people call a yoke, and they call oxen, oxen. However, there are a few people, that's most people follow the definition strictly. But there is a secondary definition that a minority of people use, and when they say simda, they refer to the oxen. So because there is a minority of people like that, I might have thought that the oxen come along with it, and the chidush of the Mishnah is, no, we follow the majority usage, and that means you only get the yoke. That was the Chachamim's opinion. So in such a case, Rabbi Yehuda disagreed with Chachamim, and he says, well, you should look at the money. Whatever the money is, if it's way overpriced, 200 for just a yoke, then it must be with the oxen. If you said 50, then that means just a yoke. But Rabbanan say that the money is no proof. Well, why not? Wait a second. If you're telling me that the money is not a proof that the oxen are included, well, then that means he's way overpaying. He's paying 200 for something that's worth 50. We know from the laws of ona'ah that you cannot overcharge, you cannot underpay, and if the overcharge is more than a sixth, and in this case it's quadruple, or anything more than a sixth, then that's called ona'ah. And generally the rule is that the transaction is nullified. So in this case, it shouldn't be that the yoke is sold. It should be that there's no sale at all, right? We should come and say, you charge 200 just for a yoke? Okay, no sale at all. That should be the other opinion. In other words, Rabbi Yehuda would say, if you said 200, it must be there's a value of 200 there. That's with the oxen. Okay, that's a good sale. But according to Chamim, we don't do that. We assume the yoke itself. A yoke for 200, way overpriced. Then that means that there's no sale at all, not the oxen and not even the yoke. So how are we going to answer that? And maybe you'll say Rabbanan don't have a whole concept of the nullification of the transaction. Maybe they don't even have a concept of ona'ah. It's a prohibition, but you don't nullify the transaction. The transaction goes through nevertheless. Is that what Rabbanan think? V'hatanan Rabbi Yehuda omer hamocher sefer Torah behema umargalit en lahem ona'ah. Amru lo amru ela et elu. We have a Mishnah back in Baba Messiah where Rabbi Yehuda says if someone sells a Torah scroll, an animal, or a pearl, there's no ona'ah. These have no fixed price. These are very precious items, and it's priceless. And if someone decides to pay double, way over the market price for a certain jewel or for a Sefer Torah, then there's no set price for that, and that sale is permitted and it goes through. Against that, the Chachamim said, no, we only apply the no ona'ah rule to these things mentioned earlier in the Mishnah. That's to land, slaves, and documents. Land, some people, they just really like this location, they really like this land, and they're willing to overpay. And that's fine. There's no ona'ah and the sale goes through. But for all other items, there is ona'ah and the sale does not go through. So we see that the Chachamim in that Mishnah say that there is a nullification of a transaction if it's overcharging. And so therefore you can't say that they don't have this law at all. They do have this law. And so back to our question, if someone's charging 200 just for a yoke, then the Chamim should not say, oh, he means only the yoke. The transaction should be null and void, because that's way overpriced. So we answer, "Mai en damim re'aya name de katane tahave bitul mikach." Oh, so we explain. What does it mean, en damim re'aya, that there's no proof for the from the money? It means indeed that the sale is in fact nullified. Yes, that's exactly what it means. So we hear that someone bought a yoke for 200, and we're wondering, does that include the oxen or not? Rabbi Yehuda says, well, it's 200. It must include the oxen. That would be worth, about 200. Okay, so then it's a valid sale according to Rabbi Yehuda with the yoke and the oxen. According to Chachamim, 200 is only for the yoke, not for the oxen. That's way overpriced. So therefore, the whole sale is canceled. The transaction is null and void because that's ona'ah. And that's exactly what they mean in the Mishnah when they say, en damim re'aya. That's one answer. Lema, ki amur Rabbanan ona'a ubitul mikach b'chedei she'adat to'a. Ava b'chedei she'en adat to'a la. Amur matana yehab le. Or another answer, which is very interesting, is that when the rabbis say that when something is overcharged, then we nullify the transaction, that's only if it's overcharged more than the 6, but within a reasonable amount that someone could make a mistake. If the general market value for a yoke is 50 and then someone pays 70, it's more than a 6, it's true, but someone might think, oh, maybe it's worth 70. In that case, the transaction is null and void because you misrepresented this thing, you tricked him, and he overpaid, and so you're not allowed to do that, and then he gets his money back. However, if it's an amount that's so much that no one would possibly think, not even an ignorant person would think that a yoke is 200 zuz, nobody would think that. Since it's so way out of line, I mean, we're talking about a difference between just a yoke and a yoke plus 2 animals. That would be, I don't know, maybe it would be 50 versus $2,000, like way overpriced. In that case, ironically, the sale is not null and void. It goes through because it's obvious that seller knew what he was doing. The buyer knew what he was doing, and the buyer gave him an extraordinary amount of money as a gift, and he wanted the sale to go through. He wasn't tricked into buying it for so much money, and that's the case here. So, in fact, when you have a yoke that's and we said 200 zuz, and really it's only worth a market value of much, much less. But he paid 200. Then we say en damim re'ayah, not a proof. Oh, is it mekach taut? No, it's not mekach taut, because the value is so far out of line that he must have known that this is not the value of it, and he just wanted to give him a gift, and that's Chachamim's opinion that the sale is valid. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen.